Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Pregame Show, brought to you by our friends over at Walk-Ons. The plan is simple today for Bucs vs. Saints. Win, and the Bucs are in, as they will clinch the NFC South Championship for the fourth year in a row. It's a very winnable game for the Buccaneers, but there was some news yesterday, some unfortunate news that may play a role in this afternoon's game as well. So we're going to break it all down, look at some individual matchups for Bucs versus Saints. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at pewterreport.com, SR, Scott Reynolds. Scott, good morning. How we doing?
Good morning. Doing good. This is going to be a fun game today. The Buccaneers are 14-point favorites in this game, and they were 9-point favorites last week. And look what happened: a 48-14 win over a Carolina Panthers team that didn't put up much of a fight outside of the first quarter. And I don't know that the New Orleans Saints have enough bodies to put up a big fight, especially keeping up with Liam Cohen's offense. It seems like it's going to be a big day for the Buccaneer offense today. In the Saints, again, they're kind of ravaged on defense. They're ravaged on offense. They just don't have a lot of bodies to be able to keep up with the scoreboard. And it seems to me that the only way Tampa Bay can lose this game is if they literally give it away and they lose the turnover battle. We did see that back in Dallas, Sunday Night Football, 3-0. They lost the turnover battle, and that allowed the Cowboys to steal a 26-24 win at the last second.
Yeah, well, the Cowboys at least had CeeDee Lamb. Like, for everything that we said about how could you lose to Cooper Rush, well, because Cooper Rush was throwing to CeeDee Lamb.
That's right.
But that's what we talked about during this week, whether it was on the podcast or the Pewter Insider. I know specifically one thing I said that I was slightly concerned about, not obviously losing sleep over it or anything, but it was if Alvin Kamara was able to play in this game. It was if Chris Olave was able to play in this game for the Saints, because Jamel Dean isn't participating and Josh Hayes will be in at corner. And now obviously the news with Jordan Whitehead, but those guys aren't playing, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
So now it gets to the point where essentially if the Bucs want to say, hey, we're going to get in a shootout, we're just going to go blow for blow, and we think we're going to get more touchdowns than you are, and we're going to get one more stop than you can on the defensive side. Pete Werner not playing in this game either for the Saints on the defensive side of the football. So I appreciate what Todd Bowles said the other day, actually. He was talking about the offense and saying that it's a good feeling knowing they can win in different ways. They can win in a shootout. They can grind it out. They can score in very different ways. And I think today is another good example of that. They'll need it more for the postseason, but they can't get to the postseason unless they win this game. So, yeah, I'm excited for what they can do. There's a lot on the table, a lot of milestones to reach, and should be a fun one.
Yeah, and for Todd Bowles, it's not just, win and you're in. It's win and keep your job. I don't know that Todd Bowles' job security is locked up if he loses this game. Why? Because you and I were there, Matt, when Joe Glazier was looking for progress. He wanted improvements. They wanted to build upon what happened last year. Well, last year was a 9-win season and another NFC South division title and a playoff win at home against the Philadelphia Eagles. So logic says that if this team finishes 9-8 again, that's not progress. Not making the playoffs is not progress, and losing the NFC South title really for the third time this year. And I think that's the important thing for Todd Bowles. They should win this game. We're not trying to be, doubters here, but we're just doing our job in reporting, and there's going to be 3 outcomes, right? Win, lose, or tie. And if the Buccaneers do lose this game, it's a perilous situation for Todd Bowles, because Tampa Bay has had 3 instances now where they have been on top of the division, right before they played Atlanta. And then you look at the when the Buccaneers recaptured that lead after the Chargers game, and the Falcons were falconing at the time. And then again, when the Falcons falconed the most recent time, losing to the Commanders on December 29th. The Buccaneers back in charge of the division and in charge of their own destiny here. Win and you're in. It's that simple, but it's also win, and Todd Bowles has much more job security than what happened if he were to lose.
certainly more job security. Now, if they went out and lost in the first round, what happens there? But we can kind of save
Yeah,
that for another day. But the other big news going into this, Scott, obviously, kind of came out of nowhere.
yeah,
You really planned for this, but unfortunately, Jordan Whitehead was in a car accident yesterday. He was actually on his way to the Bucs facility as they were getting ready to go through walkthroughs, as the team traditionally does the day before of a game. And the car accident, while thankfully not life threatening or anything like that, he did sustain some injuries from it and will not be available for this game against the Saints. And
right.
will be out for the season as well. So it's not just an injury for today, it's for the rest of the season. And, our thoughts and prayers go out to Jordan. I mean, the first
For
thing is
sure.
overall health and safety. So that's most important. And then secondly, I mean, we're talking about a position for the Bucs that's already ravaged by injuries.
Oh, yeah.
Winfield missing 7 or 8 games now at this point.
He's only played in 9 this whole year. 9 games.
Yeah, even Mike Edwards just got to the team, missed a game. Christian Izien is on injured reserve. So Jordan Whitehead just came back. Like, he had played in that Giants game, tore his pec, went on injured reserve, came back for the Panthers game, and now unfortunately he's back on IR. So it's going to be Mike Edwards, Kayvon Merriweather. They signed Ryan Neal as well, but they're thin overall at defensive back between Jamel Dean not being available at corner and now what's going on at safety. But man, it's a slight concern, obviously, for this game, but for the aspirations that this team has as well.
For sure. The hope is that Winfield comes back for the playoffs, right? He's trending in that direction. So he was ruled out for this game, but he did practice this week in a limited fashion. So there is some hope that maybe next week, if this team has a game next week, and it looks likely against an undermanned, overmatched Saints team, that would be the case, right? So then you look at Mike Edwards and Antoine Winfield Jr. being the starters, with Kayvon Merriweather and Ryan Neal being the reserves. But yeah, it's been a position with Christian Izien going out and Winfield, missing, only playing in 9 games, missing 8. I mean, it's been brutal at the safety position, and even Whitehead missed 4 games with that pec injury, then just came back to play against the Panthers, and then suffers this serious injury. Don't know the specifics of what that injury is, but reading between the lines, it's not career threatening, but it's early, kind of like in the recovery process, obviously, with just happening yesterday. I'll throw this out there, and I'm not trying to fear monger or whatever, but it's just a fact. Kendall Beckwith, who was a promising inside linebacker.
I was thinking Kendall Beckwith, and then I was thinking this happened to JPP as well. Obviously, everyone always thinks of the fireworks incident, but when he was with the Buccaneers, he fractured some vertebrae in his back, and this was it would have to be either the 2021 or 2022 season. It wasn't the year that they won the Super Bowl, but this happened to JPP just out of nowhere, got in a car accident and missed some time at the beginning of the year. So yeah, I mean, these things are sporadic. You never know when it's going to happen. And for Kendall Beckwith, that was really, really unfortunate because it ended his career.
Yeah. Certainly hoping for the best for Jordan Whitehead and the Buccaneers today, as Angela and Jeff Goodrich and Aylin Abraham and Paul, a.k.a. OG Baker Bro, say hello this morning. We appreciate that. Thanks for getting up with us all season long. We tried this little experiment to see if it would work, because we would typically do the Pewter pregame show an hour before kickoff, and I know a lot of people were filing into the stadium or at the game, and so we wanted something a little bit earlier in the morning to get you going. Maybe you're getting ready to go to the game, or maybe you're planning your home tailgate a spot. You've got like a little watch party going on today at your house. So we wanted to get this going for you guys early, as well as have some latest up to the minute injury news. And it looks like Cade Otton will be a game time decision. That's not surprising considering the fact that he's missed some time with that knee injury. But you know what? This might be a situation too where they want to rest Cade Otton, right? I mean, we saw the emergence of Payne Durham as a pass catcher on Sunday against the Carolina Panthers, and Devin Culp getting out there and catching some passes as well. So yeah, it's I think they're okay at the tight end position. O'Keefe, I mean, shoot, they even went 13 personnel with 4 verts, sending O'Keefe and Devin Culp and Payne Durham on vertical routes, along with Jalen McMillan out of the backfield. That just shows you the creativity that Liam Cohen has as a play caller. So I think they're going to be okay, even if Cade Otton doesn't play today. And at this point, if he's game time decision, I almost think they're better off just waiting a week, right, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, he was on the injury report as doubtful, so
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if Cade Otton ends up playing. But I
Yeah.
think that speaks a lot to, we talked about even before the season started, a lot of the second-year players and who do we think is going to step up. And Payne Durham was in the conversation, but when Cade Otton plays 95% of the time, it's really tough for him to make an impact. So,
Yeah.
again, it goes back to what we talked about all season long. Credit to Liam Cohen for getting the most out of his players and having guys rise to the occasion when their number is called. So,
Yeah.
Payne Durham, made a little bit of an impact in the game against the Cowboys, had a couple of catches, but was really able to spread his wings and fly in the game against the Panthers last week, scoring his first career touchdown. And I'm very excited about Devin Culp and what he could do in the passing game because he's got a little bit of speed. I mean, he's got to add more to his overall game, his overall arsenal. But nonetheless, I mean, it was a good start. It was the most snaps he's ever played in his career.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great idea to preserve Cade Otton for one more game, get him ready for the playoffs. He's got a bulky gear on his knee.
Yeah, big knee brace
at the moment. So, with that knee brace. So he's clearly not 100%. He's still an Iron Man, even though he's missed a couple of games. And hey, I mean, we talked before about maybe the Bucs add another tight end in the offseason, either in the draft or free agency, but maybe they don't necessarily need to now based on what Payne Durham and Devin Culp have done.
And it's interesting, Matt, because all 3 of those guys are day 3 picks, right? Cade Otton was a 4th-round pick. Payne Durham was picked in, I believe, the end of the 5th round, and Devin Culp was a 7th-round pick last year. So, and the interesting thing is they were literally this close to drafting Michael Pratt out of Tulane, the quarterback, and the Packers moved in. Well, they didn't move. They actually were picking one spot ahead of the Buccaneers, but they turned that draft card in and it said Michael Pratt, and Jason Light and the Bucs scouting staff were like, oh, dang it, we really like that quarterback. And as it turns out, they have Michael Pratt anyways and Devin Culp. Both of those guys might have some promising futures here in Tampa Bay. Pratt might be in contention for the backup quarterback spot next year with Kyle Trask, who is a free agent. So we'll see what Trask's future is in Tampa Bay. He might want to move on, or he might like the situation. Not too many starting jobs out there, and he's going to have to wait because he didn't really have any film outside of preseason games. But we'll get into the offseason discussion in a little bit. I want to get your thoughts, Matt, on this line today, because last week it was Tampa Bay -9 against the Panthers. They obviously crushed that. This is a much bigger spread, -14. Let's go back to week 6. They were down 27-24 in New Orleans, yet they destroyed the Saints in the second half, ended up winning 51-27, dropping a 50 burger on the Saints. The one thing about New Orleans, though, it's crazy. They're 5-1 in the last 6 years at Raymond James Stadium playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. New Orleans actually won last year. The Bucs needed to win in week 17 to clinch the NFC South, as it turns out. Saints had other ideas. They came in ready to play, raced out to a 23-0 lead, ended up winning 23-13. Tampa Bay had to go to Carolina and win in week 18 to clinch the division. That was a much better Saints team last year, Matt. They finished 9-8 along with Tampa Bay. They beat the Falcons in the season finale, but the Bucs had the tiebreaker. So even though they lost in week 17, they were still able to clinch. But that was a team with Derek Carr and more of like an at full strength squad. This is Spencer Rattler and company. What do you think about this line, man?
Week 18 is so weird. The lines get all over the place because some teams are motivated and have something to play for the way that the Bucs do. Other teams aren't going to play their starters at all. I mean, we just saw a game yesterday between the Browns and the Ravens where it was a 20-point spread, and that was with the Browns offense that is kind of missing a lot of pieces the same way that the Saints are. And I don't even think the Ravens played that well, and they still covered late. I mean, for me, the Bucs have had their fair share of close games, but most of the time it's been against, the pretty good opponents,
Right.
the Chiefs and the Ravens of the world. And they've beaten, at least in the last month, they've beaten up on the bad teams. So 14 is without a doubt very high. You won't see that really any other time in the regular season.
Yeah.
It is high, but the Bucs, they know how to put on a show on
Yeah.
offense. And again, I don't know how the Saints are going to score. I mean, this is a Saints team that scored no points against the Packers 2 weeks ago and 10 points against the Raiders. And credit to the Raiders for still fighting, even though they're looking for a first overall pick.
Yeah.
If they can only score 10 points against the Raiders, what are they going to do against a Bucs team when the Bucs jump out to a lead like they always do?
Yeah.
So I actually still think the Bucs have a good shot of covering. I really like the over of 43.5.
Yeah.
Because there's a good shot the Bucs are scoring 35, maybe even 40 on their own. So I'm definitely more of a fan of the over this week. But 14, I mean, you will not see a number that high for the rest of the season.
It's interesting because there are a couple things at play. Baker Mayfield is actually 5 touchdowns away from breaking Tom Brady's single-season record. He is at 39 with 4 touchdowns, which he did last time in New Orleans against these Saints. 4 touchdowns would tie Brady's single-season record of 43. 5 touchdowns, which he did last week against an overmatched Carolina Panthers team. He could break Brady's record. Guess who's calling the game today for Fox? Tom Brady.
I believe it's Tom Brady.
Yeah. Now, there's another storyline that bears watching, too. The Buccaneers have got a pretty talented offensive coordinator. You might have heard of him, Liam Cohen, right? Well, here's the thing with Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen grew up a Tom Brady fan and a New England Patriots fan because he was in Rhode Island. That's New England Patriots territory. And he went to UMass right there in the state of Massachusetts and watched Tom Brady work up close and in person. Tom Brady's calling this game. Tom Brady also helped set the single-season points record for Tampa Bay with 511. The Buccaneers are 37 points away from topping that and becoming the highest scoring offense in team history today. Who's calling this game? Tom Brady. You don't think Liam Cohen wants to put on a show? You're damn right he does.
Of course he does.
51 points against the Saints last time. 41 points against the Saints against the Panthers last week on offense. There was a special team scored. Actually, the Buccaneers scored 43 points against the Saints defense last time because there was the scoop and score by Winfield. So it could happen today. Not just one record might fall of Tom Brady's, but maybe 2, as he was part of that 2021 team that helped score 51 or 511 total points.
And by the way, Mike Evans can get 85 yards and have an 11th straight season of 1,000 yards, which would tie Jerry Rice. And what people aren't talking about as well is that Mike would extend his own record of most consecutive seasons to begin a career with 1,000 yards. But then, of course, tie himself with Jerry Rice, which anytime you're in a category with Jerry Rice, you're in rarefied air. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So, like we said the other day, I want this to be celebratory by halftime. Celebratory, everyone in a good mood, Bucs up by 20. Might even get ejected at the end of the game for all he wants. Maybe not, because then fines get involved and stuff like that. But yeah, I want this to be a really fun. I want Bucs fans to be relaxed by the middle of the third quarter. That's my hope for everybody.
Yeah, interesting thing is Mike Evans has never been ejected against the Saints in Tampa. Every time that's happened, it's been in New Orleans. And usually Marshawn Lattimore was the guy getting under Mike's skin. So he's not there today. He's in Washington playing for the Commanders. So the Saints really banged up right now. They have both of their starting cornerbacks gone today. Marshawn Lattimore is a Washington Commander. The Saints traded him to get some draft capital. Boy, they're going to need it. They're going to be in rebuild mode big time next year, not have any cap room to do it. So they're going to need a lot of draft picks. The other cornerback, Paulson Adebo, who was tied for the team lead with 3 interceptions, is on injured reserve. I believe he broke his leg earlier this year. So Alontae Taylor, who has been their nickel corner, and a really good one too.
Yeah, I like him.
He's moved outside, and that's not where he plays terribly well. He is more of a slot guy, and his Pro Football Focus rating has dropped like a rock ever since then. Started off the season with a bang, but then has really fallen off. And Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama, the first-round pick, is the other starting cornerback. And so we'll see how Mike Evans fares against those guys. We'll talk about Mike Evans in our previews here. But let's get to a couple super chats this morning, Matt.
Yes, starting off with Paul, a.k.a. OG Baker Bro. Thank you for the $2 super chat, who says, can you review playoff scenarios for the Bucs? Yeah, so, I mean, obviously, if they win, they're in. The only other way they could get in by losing is if the Falcons lost to the Panthers. So they have to take care of business there. Now, what you're probably asking as well is, how does this line up for if the Bucs win? What would their first-round matchup be like? So that can't be determined until later because the Rams play the Seahawks, and the Rams are not playing their starters. So there's a chance the Seahawks will win, presumably if they play their starters, because they're eliminated from the playoffs. So why not? If the Seahawks beat the Rams and the Bucs win, the Bucs will get the 3 seed. And if the Rams win, the Bucs will have the 4 seed. Where it gets confusing as well is right now the Commanders are the 6th seed, the Packers are the 7th seed. So if the Commanders beat Dallas, the Commanders stay in the 6th spot, and the Packers will stay in the 7th spot. If the Commanders lose, Packers win, Packers move up to the 6th spot. And then, of course, the Lions and the Vikings are playing for the number 1 seed and a first-round bye, or the 5th seed. So the Bucs could end up really playing the Lions, Vikings, Commanders, or Packers, depending on where they are seated, either 3 or 4, what happens with the Lions and the Vikings, and all the other teams I just mentioned. And really the biggest thing you got to pay attention to is what happens in Seahawks, Rams, and just decide whether or not the Bucs are the 3 or 4 seed, and then it gets evened out a little bit more. But it's a lot of if this, then that type of situation right now.
Matt, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. You nailed it.
Thank
you. And I mean, you're channeling your inner Greg Allman there, because there's a lot of different scenarios that can still take place in Week 18. That's what makes the NFL so much fun. Is the games typically come down to field goals. Let's hope that's not the case today. And a lot of playoff seeding and positioning comes down to Week 18. So good stuff.
Yeah, a lot of excitement, especially if the Bucs win. Then it's like, hey, they're in. Great. Now we can scoreboard watch and have a little fun with it. Steve Shute, thank you for the $5 super chat, who says, good morning, guys. We're in a blizzard in Kansas City. Yeah, there was a crazy story about the Chiefs not being able to fly out on time based on all of that. Regardless of what happens today, this team's window is wide open next year. Go Buccaneers. That's the part I was chuckling at. There's no doubt about it. I mean, in the rare case that the Bucs don't win today, and anything's possible, it's an any given Sunday type of thing, I still feel great about the offense for next season. It's really just, hey, how do you change the defense and what do you fix there? And I think there are many avenues to fix the defense for next season while keeping the greatness of what was Tampa Bay's offense. So obviously I want them to make the postseason, maybe go on a run that gets them to the Super Bowl. But as you said several times, Scott, 2025 is the year for the Bucs, at least the next season, where they should be taken very seriously by national media, by opponents, because there's no stopping that offense.
Yeah, I just put my Pewter Pulse in the chat if you guys want to take a look at it after the show. I talk about the Buccaneers needing to ramp up in 2025. And all indications are, from what I've learned, they will. They're going to open up the checkbook. Their salary cap situation will be better than it has been in years past with the dead money. I think Chris Godwin's going to be back. He's got a massive dead salary cap hit coming, but you can restructure his contract and kick some of that down the road a little bit. And I think Chris will be back. I did a Pewter Pulse on that as well just the other day. It's been very well received. But 2025 is the year. I mean, this year's draft class, as good as it is, Matt, will be even better next year because they'll have all this experience under their belt. They'll level up. And the draft class from 2023, which is very promising, Kalijah Kancey, Yaya Diaby, et cetera. That draft class, Cody Malk, will be even better with this year under their belt as well, heading into year 3. Look what year 3 has done for Logan Hall, right? I mean, people were writing him off, 5.5 sacks. He'll be entering a contract year next year, very motivated. Buccaneers like to rotate those defensive tackles in there. Yes, all indications are 2025 should be the year where the Buccaneers are a legitimate Super Bowl contender. And regardless of what happens this year, I agree with Steve. I think that's the case. And also, that I know all about that blizzard in Kansas City. I've been talking to my college roommates. They're dealing with it. My daughter Ellie was supposed to fly back to Kansas City today, but has canceled her flight because I don't even know if the airport's even open.
Geez.
And she's now flying out on Tuesday, waiting for this storm and between 10 to 20 inches of snow to pass. So,
geez.
Yeah.
Everyone stay safe. That's
warm. Stay warm.
Yeah,
too.
and warm.
Single digit and below zero temperatures expected across the plains. So stay warm.
Yikes. Cameron Page, thank you for the $1.99 super chat. Good looking photo with Mike and Chris and Creamsicle.
Yeah.
Says Baker 5 touchdowns for the league lead and franchise record.
Yeah.
He threw 5 touchdowns last week, and the Bucs have to win this game. So we know Baker hates coming out of games too. So
yes,
they're gonna play a majority of the time. Like unless the Bucs are up 30 with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, Baker's gonna be in there. There's a great chance that Baker. I mean, we talked all week, all month, all season about Mike making history, but Baker can be right there with him.
Well, yeah, and the interesting thing too is when you look at the at the situation. Remember, there was a drive where Bucky Irving had like 80 yards worth of running in that big 43-yard screen down to the 1-yard line. And what did Baker do? He didn't turn around and hand it off to Bucky. No, he threw that 1-yard touchdown to Mike Evans. So, I think the only way that Baker maybe doesn't have a big day is remember what happened last time they played the Saints. They ran for 277 yards against that defense. So if the ground game is going, it's going to piss off a lot of player prop people unless you have touchdowns by Sean Tucker and Rashad White and Bucky Irving on your scorecard today in your bet slip. I think it's going to be done through the air today, though, because the concerted effort right out of the gate is going to be getting Mike his 85 yards. I think Baker will pass. Remember, Sean Tucker owned the fourth quarter when the Buccaneers were already up. So a lot of those running yards will come in the fourth quarter if Tampa Bay is well ahead. But for the first 3 quarters, I'm with you, Matt. I think Baker's going to be slinging the rock.
Trey Cloutier, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Says, I want to see the Buccaneers and Ducky Irving absolutely dominate the Saints today. That kind of goes hand in hand with what we just talked about how the Bucs have been able to establish the run on the Saints, and kind of adding on top of what you were just talking about. I think the Bucs do their best work in the second half running the football. They just kind of wear you down and beat you down and bludgeon you. And if Sean Tucker can win NFC Offensive Player of the Week, and that's, no knock on Sean Tucker, he's just, isn't used that much.
Right.
And Bucky Irving won it a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that Bucky can do it once again against the same team that they dominated in their first matchup. So I expect a lot of big time stuff from the Bucs. I think Baker will throw for at least 2 touchdowns. I still think Mike's going to score. I do think, they want to get Bucky into the end zone just based on, what happened the week before with him getting so close, but then going back to Mike, the rock is going to go around to everybody in today's game. Again, when they're scoring 5 touchdowns a game, it can go around to several people. Jalen McMillan, 6 touchdowns in his last 4 games. There's going to be plenty for people to enjoy success in today's game.
That's right. And let's not forget, Bucky already got his 1,000 yards last week, right? He may not play a pronounced role in this maybe after the first quarter if Tampa Bay gets up. Maybe you want to rest him. He's had a back and a hip injury this year. Maybe you want to rest him a little bit and you feed Rashad and you feed Sean Tucker in the second half. So, Bucky doesn't get dinged up because you obviously want this guy as your lead back in the playoffs. Just like you want to be tuned in at 1:00 today to Matt Matera and Josh Capo for their call on Pewter Game Day right here on Pewter Report TV at 1:00. That's right. You can check it out on our social media platforms as well, where it also live streams on X and Facebook at Pewter Report. And of course, Pewter Report TV. We're on our way to 17,000 subscribers. Thanks to you guys. We've had a flurry of new subscribers. So if you haven't done so yet, please go to Pewter Report TV, hit the subscribe button. It's free. There's nothing to it other than just hitting the button, and you can join one of the almost 17,000 Buccaneer fans that have joined our channel. And if you want to support our channel monetarily, you can do so. You can show your support for Pewter Report by becoming a Pewter Report TV channel member. We've also seen a big spike in channel members since the holiday season. So you guys were in the giving mood, and we greatly appreciate that. There's 4 different levels to becoming a Pewter Report TV channel member. You can become a Pewter People member for $3.99 a month. That gives you loyalty badges, custom emojis, and I'm going to be loading some more emojis this week. So I know you guys have asked for it, and I'm going to deliver. The Pewter Pro membership is $6.99 a month. It gets you those badges and emojis as well as early access to our videos. So whenever we put out like a new Pewter Pulse video, an all-22 breakdown, Matt's Pewter Picks and Props, those will go up as members only for a bit, and we'll get our Pewter Pro members the chance to watch those first. Then the Pewter Premier membership, you also get everything. In addition to weekly shout outs to our Pewter Premier members on our Pewter Report podcast and exclusive Q&A videos that we do just for our Pewter Premier and Platinum members. That's called our Pewter Insider every Friday at 1:30. It's a members only video that Matt and I do. It's live. You guys can ask questions. You can also watch it in the archive version on Pewter Report TV. And finally, our Pewter Platinum members, we have some merch going out, some free merch to our members this week. And we're going to have our first annual meetup out of 2 in Tampa after the Bucs season concludes, probably in February. We're working on a date and a location for that. And you get all of that stuff for $24.99 a month. So please consider supporting our channel. We greatly appreciate it, and you can do that by becoming a Pewter Report TV channel member. Just hit the join button on the front page, and you can find out how you can sign up for the level that suits you and your budget the best.
That's right. Okay, one more super chat, then we'll get to the matchups in today's game. Jeff Goodrich, thank you for the $2 super chat, who says, is the front office not happy with 31's season? Of course, talking about Antoine Winfield Jr.
Yeah, I mean, he's been injured, right? And that injury happened at the end of the season opener. He had a foot injury. He came back, made a splash against these New Orleans Saints with the scoop and score. That's really kind of been maybe his only big signature play this year. He almost had one of those.
Well, he got screwed on that one.
Against the Kyle Pitts forced fumble, where he did that a couple times last year. You know, he hasn't been the superhero that he was last year for sure. He's only started 9 games too, because he had a knee injury against the Raiders and that foot injury against the Washington Commanders. I think that's taken some out of his game. I don't think he's been healthy all season due to that foot injury. Just hasn't looked the same. But listen, go back to his rookie season when he helped this team win a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
His consistency is remarkable over these 4 years. It wasn't just the banner all-pro season that got him that big contract. It was the fact that for all 4 years, he was a chess piece for Todd Bowles, sacking the quarterback, touchdown-saving tackles, interceptions, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries. I'm not worried about it. This is a down year. I think every NFL player, except for Mike Evans, even Evans, he had a couple of down years in terms of touchdowns. But they kind of go through this. I would expect that Antoine Winfield Jr. will be back with a vengeance. If not in the playoffs, then certainly next year.
Yeah, I just think it's more upsetting about the injuries than anything else. It's such a small sample size that, sure, of course his numbers are down. He hasn't played as much. He's not going to have the same statistics that he was when he was an all-pro. But, that's why you signed him to a long-term extension.
Yeah.
And for what he's already done for this team, he's still deserved that contract anyway. So I wouldn't worry too much about Antoine Winfield Jr. I think him just getting healthy is the most important thing. And, hey, he can still make an impact if they make the postseason and he's able to come back.
Yep, exactly. You talked about those matchups today. Let's get to those, Matt. Presented by Walk On Sports Bistro, 3 locations in the Tampa Bay area. Get to the one down there by the stadium today, Midtown Tampa, before the game or after the game. It's a great place to celebrate. There's another location up here by my neck of the woods, up in Wesley Chapel, across from the Outlet Malls, right off of 75. And then also one out there in Lakeland. You can go to walkons.com for driving directions, menu, and other pieces of information you'd want to know about the fantastic place for food and fun and football. And that's Walk-Ons. So let's look at today's Bucs offense versus Saints defense. Tristan Wirfs is going to be going up against a couple guys. Carl Granderson, though, is their best player on defense right now, 5.5 sacks. That's tied with Chase Young, who he'll also be seeing 5.5 sacks. Granderson's a good pass rusher. I liked him coming out of Wyoming. He's one of those guys I had on my draft radar a couple years ago. He's turned into a good player. Remember, they drafted Marcus Davenport and they drafted Peyton Turner. Those guys didn't pan out. Granderson's a pretty good player, but Tristan Wirfs just named to his 4th straight Pro Bowl. Matt, how do you like this matchup?
Exactly. Like, Granderson's a solid guy. No shame in what he's done as a pass rusher in this league. But we're talking about a guy that's a future Ring of Honor member for the Buccaneers. We're talking about a guy that whenever Lane Johnson retires and, Trent Williams looks like he's going to retire soon, will be coveted as the top offensive tackle in the NFL. It'll be him and Penei Sewell. They will be linked for a very long time. So, unless you get a pass rusher that has a combination of TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Reggie White, and Simeon Rice, you're going to take Tristan Wirfs in every single matchup. So the answer is Tristan Wirfs. Yeah,
it's hard to go against Tristan Wirfs. And I remember when he came out as a rookie in his very first game, and even in his first season, he neutralized Cam Jordan back when Jordan was a good player, back when he was more in his prime. And that really caught everyone's attention right off the bat. Remember, there was no preseason back then in 2020 due to COVID. So his first game reps as an NFL player came at right tackle against Cam Jordan and did a fantastic job. It's hard to go against Tristan Wirfs, and we're not going to today. Let's talk about the running back, Bucky Irving. It may be Rashad White, and it may be Sean Tucker as well, against Demario Davis, one of my favorite players that I enjoy watching. I think he's 35 years old. He's getting up there. He's not the player he was, but he still has some incredible stats when you look at the number of tackles that he's able to produce. 127. He's got 2 sacks, 8 pass breakups, and an interception. He's been a thorn in the Bucs side for years, but he's not a one-man gang, and I think the Saints overall are a little overmatched in this game. How do you see Bucky Irving, a guy that makes every linebacker miss, it seems, in the hole?
Yeah, Davis still has a lot of great instincts. If this was, Demario Davis from 2 or 3 seasons ago, I think I'd probably go with a push. But you have to refer back to, and I know it wasn't even that much Bucky Irving. He was obviously involved, and it was Sean Tucker that, was the hero of the game. But you have to go back to that Week 6 matchup and see how the Bucs ran roughshod against New Orleans. And because of that, to me, it doesn't really matter who's there for the Saints. They're an older team that's kind of withering away.
Yeah.
So the answer is Bucky. Bucky just has this incredible ability to absorb contact and just keep going forward.
Yeah.
No matter who's trying to tackle him. It's a really incredible skill set. It's not easy to do, and he makes it look so easy.
Well said.
So I'll go with Bucky. I mean, I'm probably going with the Bucs in a lot of these matchups.
Yes.
I'm very excited to see what Bucky can do today.
Yep, me too. Luke Gedeke at right tackle versus the fading legend Cameron Jordan. There's some talk this may be his last game as a Saint, or maybe his last game in the NFL. The Saints need to purge their roster from some of these older, high-priced veterans that just don't have it anymore. And Cameron Jordan is a shell of his former self. He was a dominant pass rusher for years, likely Hall of Famer, has 4 sacks this season, actually had an interception off a deflected pass against the Buccaneers back in Week 6, and kind of a fluky second quarter where the Bucs raced out to a 17-0 lead, and the Saints, they came right back. I mean, they were leading 27-24 at halftime in that game. It's crazy to think looking back now, but I don't think Luke Gedeke, who really truthfully has had a Pro Bowl caliber season. He didn't get the Pro Bowl nod, but I think this is a big step. And you mentioned Lane Johnson. When Lane Johnson retires, right? Because the right tackles in the NFC are Lane Johnson and Penei Sewell as the Pro Bowlers. I think Luke Gedeke is in the conversation there for being a Pro Bowl caliber player. He's going to get paid handsomely in the offseason, though. He's going to get a contract extension. I don't think he has a problem with Cameron Jordan today. Yeah,
very much so. And as far as him getting paid, and Tristan Wirfs needs to do some lobbying and campaigning when he's at the Pro Bowl, being
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm grateful to be here, but look at my guy, Luke Gedeke, and what he's doing. And I want Luke Gedeke and the rest of the Bucs offensive line to retire Cameron Jordan. Cam Jordan, I should say. I want Cam Jordan's last game to be a loss in Raymond James Stadium as the Bucs clinch another division title and go on yet another playoff run. I think every Bucs fan would love that. So because of that, I will take Luke Gedeke.
For someone who's talked so much shit against the Buccaneers, right, and has no Super Bowl rings, you would love to see that. Well said, Matt Patera. Well said.
Thank you.
Baker Mayfield versus Tyrann Mathieu. Mathieu is tied for the Saints lead with 3 interceptions. Again, kind of a shell of his former self player, an older 30-something aging veteran that's overpaid in New Orleans, which is in for a salary cap hell this offseason. Finally, after kicking the can down the road, it seems like a decade, they're going to have their comeuppance in the offseason. Mayfield has thrown interceptions galore in the second quarter. He's done better with that as of late, but he had 3 second quarter interceptions in New Orleans. As a matter of fact, those 3 interceptions against the Saints, none of which went to Mathieu, but that's the most interceptions he's had against any team this year, 3 against the Saints. So hopefully he'll avoid Tyrann Mathieu today. How do you see Baker Mayfield in this matchup?
This is kind of similar to what I was talking about with Bucky against Demario Davis, where if this is Tyrann Mathieu from like 1 or 2 seasons ago, I may go with a push.
Yeah.
But Baker has been, for everything you said is true about, all the turnovers he had, especially in that game against the Saints. But Baker's been on fire. He's been on absolute fire, especially coming off that game last week. So it's tough to go against Baker right now. I'm certainly not going to do it on today's hopeful celebratory day.
Yeah. It's it could be another Baker Mayfield day. Like he had 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but still 4 touchdowns against the Saints. I'm with you. Let's round out the offensive matchups to watch here. Mike Evans versus everybody for 1,000 yards. The reason why we say that is because Alontae Taylor will be playing one corner. You've got a rookie, Kool-Aid McKinstry, who has no interceptions so far in his NFL career, on the other cornerback spot. Their third cornerback is a 5'9" nickel corner because they had to move Alontae Taylor to the outside where he could play, and so that they've got a different nickel than what they had last time, and he doesn't have a lot of experience. I'm trying to find his name here. And anyways, 5'9" corner versus 6'5" Mike Evans in the slot. That doesn't seem to bode well for the New Orleans Saints. And his name is Ugo Amadi, right? 5'9" corner in the slot against the 6'5" Mike Evans, who needs 85 yards to get the record, 1,000-yard seasons for 11 straight years, tying Jerry Rice. And Matt, he's getting 40% of the snaps in the slot this year under Liam Cohen.
Yeah, I think they know where to get the advantage in this one. First of all, print the shirts, Mike Evans versus everybody. And there can't be any stopping Mike Evans today.
Yeah.
They're going to pepper him. They're going to make sure he gets it. It will always be Mike Evans.
Yep.
It will always be Mike Evans.
I'm with you on that. We always want you to make walk-ons your preferred destination when it comes to watching football games. Why? Because they've got like 1,000 TVs. Maybe not in each location, but like if you add them all up across all their stores, they have like 1,000. It seems like they have 1,000. Matt, whenever you walk into a walk-ons, what's the first thing you see? A bazillion TVs, right? They have every game on, every sports, all day long. It's incredible. If you have not had the chance to go to walk-ons, make sure you do it, because legendary New Orleans Saints quarterback Drew Brees, who suffered his career-ending loss to your Tampa Bay Buccaneers in his house, New Orleans, throwing an interception on his last NFL pass to Mike Edwards to lose the NFC divisional round playoff game to the eventual Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, we like Drew Brees now because he puts money in our pockets and he has a great place called Walk-Ons.
Game day at Walk-Ons is just different. And it starts with the way our teammates prep each dish from our scratch menu. No shortcuts. We are hand cutting every single mozzarella log straight from the block. Hand peeling, stuffing, and bacon wrapping each voodoo shrimp. Hand carving ribeyes for our steaks and po' boys. And hand slicing, then tossing our boneless wings in our house-made sauces. With wall-to-wall TVs and food like this, why would you want to watch anywhere else? That's game day. The walk-on's way.
Matt, I am marinating on what you said about seeing Cam Jordan go out with the whimper, just like Drew Brees went out with the whimper against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But listen, there's no whimpering allowed at walk-ons because you're going to have game day specials every Saturday and Sunday. It's a great place to watch college football, NFL, etc. Pints are $4.49, 22-ounce pours $5.99. Michelob Ultra, Bud Light, and Budweiser $5 Heineken and Silver 12-ounce cans. $5 neutral assorted flavors. And then if you can't get there today, make sure you get there on Monday. That's their happy hour from 3 to close. $3 happy hour pours, $3.99 domestic pints, $4 house wines, $5.49 22-ounce domestic drafts, and some amazing starters, $6 fried pickles and small waffle cheese fries, $7 boom boom shrimp and queso dip, $8 will get you the boneless wings and the cheeseburger sliders. If you can't make it out there for a Victory Monday, and hopefully that's going to be the case tomorrow, Tuesday, folks, hey, all-day happy hour, including $5 Tito's, and then Wednesday and Thursday, a pair of happy hours from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. to close, and then that final happy hour on Friday from 3 to 6. Walk-ons, as we say, food, football, and fun. Let's get to the Super Chat, and we'll round out with some defensive matchups, Matt.
Yeah, thank you to Bill Devers for the $5 Super Chat. Says, not to get ahead of this season, but what do you think the chances are of us going after a top-tier defensive end or edge rusher for the Bucs in the offseason? ... Go Bucs.
Yeah, well, there's a common denominator here. The Buccaneers have been to the Super Bowl twice. They have won it twice. That's more than any other NFC South team. Matter of fact, the only other team to make the Super Bowl twice was the Falcons, and they were 0-2. And, of course, the Carolina Panthers are also 0-2. The Saints made it one time where they won it, but, they don't have two. But Tampa Bay has another common denominator in all of this, and that's a big-time edge rusher. So this is a very good question here from Bill Devers. Simeon Rice was the perfect outside guy to the inside-outside tandem that was Warren Sapp and Simeon Rice back in Super Bowl 37. Super Bowl 55 had a pair of big-time pass rushers and Shaq Barrett on one side and Jason Pierre-Paul on the other. Remember, Jason Pierre-Paul was acquired in a trade in the offseason of 2018. The Bucs general manager Jason Light sent a third-round pick to the Giants. It was a fleecing of New York, and they got a big-time pass rusher. And then they kind of struck gold. John Spytek, when he was with the Broncos, he had tabs on this Shaq Barrett guy, and they had just drafted a couple pass rushers. They had Von Miller at the time. They drafted Bradley Chubb in the first round. And so Shaq Barrett was kind of the odd man out, and he came in 2019, a year after JPP, and blew up 19 and a half sacks. And now Shaq's back. We're going to see Shaq Barrett today, which is pretty cool. But yes, long answer to your question. I do believe the Buccaneers will be looking in free agency or via trade to get a big-time pass rusher. That's one thing that's missing. Yaya Diaby has been disappointing in terms of the sack numbers. We'll see if Shaq Barrett can get a sack today. I will say this, having Shaq back in the building, as Larry Foote said on Thursday during his press conference, it helped already, even though he was in street clothes. Why? Because the Bucs had 5 sacks, including a lot of the outside linebackers getting involved. Anthony Nelson had a sack. Yaya Diaby had a sack. And
Chris Braswell had a strip sack.
Yeah, Chris Braswell had his first full sack as an NFL player. So Shaq Barrett already paying dividends. We'll see if he can get to the quarterback today. But yes, I do think they will be going after a big-time pass rusher. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka is not going to be back, folks. Anthony Nelson, if he does come back, probably a 1-year deal as a reserve player. There is some value there. They like him. But you can't bank on Chris Braswell and Yaya Diaby being that 1-2 punch. There's just not enough production there going into what should be a Super Bowl contending season in 2025. They need a new pass rush coach. Got to get rid of George Edwards. He's terrible, in my opinion. But you got to add a big-time pass rusher too, Matt.
Yeah, to me, the biggest thing that it comes down to is that Super Bowl window to go all in. This team is win now. So you don't have to worry about like the development of Chris Braswell. And I think that adding a premier pass rusher, a top pass rusher, should be right near the top of the list for the Bucs this offseason, besides signing Chris Godwin. Myles Garrett had some interesting things to say in his post-game press conference. So maybe they go that avenue, or they don't have to get Myles Garrett, but they could get another upper level pass rusher to put next to Yaya Diaby and maybe an emerging Chris Braswell. And let's not forget that Shaq wants to play next season as well. He said he's train his ass off this offseason to get fully prepared, because Shaq's like, I can't play a full game right now.
Right.
I do a handful of snaps. So I'm excited for Shaq too. I mean, now he's a year removed from the Achilles injury.
Mm-hmm.
He's clearly fresh. He hasn't played this season.
Right.
We'll see what he can do. And we have a super chat from Swift the Wolf, who says, can the Bucs go grab Myles Garrett? Would be cool to see him with Baker again. Yeah,
and you look at Myles Garrett. I mean, the production is there. If you want a consistent pass rusher, holy smokes, right? 7 sacks.
What a terrible team.
Yes, 7 sacks as a rookie, and that was it. He's had double digits every year since 13.5 in 2018, 10 in 2019, 12 the next year. He had 18 sacks. That's 16 sacks. 16 sacks in 2021 as well as 2022, and then a pair of 14 sack seasons over the last 2 years. And he's also been relatively healthy, too. Doesn't miss a lot of games. So there's a lot to like there. 29 years old. That's about the age that the Buccaneers acquired Jason Pierre-Paul. And Shaq Barrett, I think, was 28 at the time. So you're getting a player still in his prime with multiple years left. We've seen the Buccaneers make some big splashes before. That would be a monster splash, and it would certainly. I mean, could you imagine Yaya Diaby on one side and Myles Garrett on the other? What are we doing, Matt? How are you going to survive if you're a quarterback against the Buccaneers? What is it? How do you survive?
They should be on the front of some like weightlifting magazine.
Yes,
with the gargantuan size of both of them.
Vita Vea in the middle with Kalijah Kancey. You talk about like a fearsome foursome. Holy smokes. Make that happen, Jason.
Like Yaya being the weak link of that. Like that's great. With Shaq coming off the edge as well on third down situations. That's pretty nasty.
Man, crazy. All right. Speaking of the defense, let's get to that side of the ball, because I love it. And I think Tampa Bay fans love it. And we love it a lot more now that Todd Bowles' defense is playing much better since the bye week. And especially in the second half, they've just demolished teams in the second half. Including the New Orleans Saints, shutting out the Panthers in the second half, shutting out the Chargers in the second half. So we'll see what happens today, but it's looking good for the Buccaneer defense. Buccaneer defensive tackles, and we throw Logan Hall in there, giving Logan Hall some love as a 5.5 sack guy. Kalijah Kancey leads the team with 7.5. Vita Vea has 6 versus the Saints' interior offensive line. The reason why we say interior offensive line, Matt, is they've got one of the best centers in the game. Eric McCoy's been out on injured reserve for most of the season. They have Shane Lemieux in there at center, Cesar Ruiz, who's probably their best interior offensive lineman at guard, and then Ali Udo, who is really an offensive tackle. He's had to move inside, and he's terrible in terms of pass protection. So these defensive tackles might feast today against this interior offensive line, trying to protect Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, I mean, I know Vita Vea was selected to the Pro Bowl earlier this week, but Kalijah Kancey, to me, is also a Pro Bowl player. He's just fallen victim to early injuries in training camp or the preseason right before the start of the regular season. That's forced him to miss the first month or two. I mean, if Kalijah Kancey plays a full season, he's probably in the conversation to make the Pro Bowl as well. It's just very difficult to stop Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey, and it's been great to see what Logan Hall has done. I mean, look at Spencer Rattler in this picture. He's wincing in pain after Vita Vea just, completely trashes him. So, it's got to be the defensive tackles. They, like, the Bucs hashtag is like wreak havoc, whatever it is. Like, that's what they do. Like, they make lives miserable for the interior in front of them.
Yeah, they do. I got to give this to the Bucs defensive tackles today, right? I mean, I think they're going to feast, stuffing the run. They're not going to have Alvin Kamara. Kendre Miller, both those guys are out. So yeah, I think the Saints are going to be in for a rude awakening on defense. Let's talk about the Bucs inside linebackers, and looks like it's going to be J.J. Russell and Levante David today versus Clyde Edwards-Helaire, former LSU star, back in his home state. And, he's kind of a cast-off from Kansas City. He's still looking to resuscitate his NFL career, but he's going to be overmatched, I think, by this Bucs defensive front. And I think that Levante David and J.J. Russell are going to be tackling the crap out of Edwards-Helaire today. I like the Bucs inside linebackers.
I've liked how the Bucs have stopped the run over the past couple of games. And sure, again, it comes down to the caliber of opponents that they're playing. But for all that we want to knock the linebackers on their pass coverage, they've done pretty solid in run coverage. Levante still has it there. I love the hustle of J.J. Russell. Not trying to rhyme there, but it is what it is. And yeah, Edwards-Helaire hasn't been with New Orleans for a while. Like he couldn't make it work in Kansas City. So I don't love this matchup overall, but I'll take the Bucs inside linebackers.
Yep. Kayvon Merriweather, who will be getting a start today at strong safety, with Mike Edwards probably playing free safety since he's got more speed.
Yeah.
Against Foster Moreau, there's a chance that, when you look at the Saints, Taysom Hill is on injured reserve. Juwan Johnson, who I like, is questionable for today's game. But Foster Moreau is a player that can catch the occasional touchdown if you sleep on him. He's not a huge receiving threat like Juwan Johnson is, but you have to figure that the tight ends are going to be heavily involved today, because that's the weakness for the Bucs defense is the middle of the field, whether it's the safeties or the inside linebackers. They've been targeted all year. Spencer Rattler knows that scouting report. So how do you see this matchup, Matt?
I'm actually going to go with Moreau in this one. Just the Bucs have struggled covering tight ends all year. Kayvon Merriweather kind of thrown into this spot after the Jordan Whitehead news, so maybe not involved in the game plan as much, or reps in practice and things of that nature. It's just more based on the history of the Bucs covering tight ends this year. So I'll go with Foster Moreau.
Yep, I'm with you for the exact same reasons. As we round out our Bucs defense versus Saints offense previews, Anthony Nelson, who's kind of been on fire as a pass rusher, leading the outside linebacker room with 4 sacks, against Trevor Penning, the right tackle, who's played better at right tackle than he did at left tackle. But, this is a first-round pick that does not seem like he's going to live up to the draft billing. How do you see Anthony Nelson, who's in a contract year, finishing his regular season, man?
Nelly just seems to make a play. Once a game, he seems to have something go his way. Obviously, we all know the forced fumble in Carolina. He just finds a way, and I think that'll be the case in today's game. So I'll go with Anthony Nelson.
Josh Hayes versus wide receiver Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who played at USF, returning to Raymond James Stadium. He's the most veteran receiver, not named Chris Olave. Josh Hayes actually played pretty well in the second half of that game when he filled in for Jamel Dean, who's out for this game. How do you see this matchup here, Matt?
I'm a little worried about the speed of MVS. And I know he drops the ball deep, but the Bucs do allow some deep shots, that miscommunication and all that stuff. So I'm going to take MVS just based on his speed against Josh Hayes. I think he might struggle with that a little bit. And I think the Saints know not to put him against Zion McCollum because that's speed on speed. So I'll go MVS. I think ultimately it's not going to be the reason that there's an upset in today's game, but he'll win that matchup.
All the Pewter reporters picked the Buccaneers to win. That's no surprise. They're 14-point favorites. Make sure you check out Pewter Game Day coming up at 1 o'clock. Matt Matera, Josh Capo with all of the reaction to the action in today's game. You can watch that live on Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Also notifications, too. That'll let you know whenever we go live with the video. We're having any new videos published. And you can also watch it live on Facebook and X on our @Pewter Report channels. So that's coming up at 1 o'clock. This has been a fun Pewter pregame show, Matt. Hopefully there'll be another one next week.
Yes, hopefully the Bucs can come out with the win, make some history as well. So if you're not already doing so, make sure you follow us on all of our social media. We're at Pewter Report on X, Facebook, and Instagram. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're not already doing so. That is at Pewter Report TV. So Thank you, everybody, for watching. That'll do it for us this morning. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thank you very much. And we'll see you soon for another, hopefully soon, for another Pewter pregame show. Out.